I'm back, your average, ordinary, everyday, middle-aged man with an unnatural fetish for rare and unique titles on the PS5. You know, I've been gang playing these things in hopes that my efforts pay off near the end of the year, and I reached the 3,000 subscriber mark. So, like a desperate Mr. Rogers who never misses a shoe toss, please, won't you be my neighbor with a like and subscription? I'd say that would be pretty neighborly if you did. Now, for my end of the bargain, I'm fixing to bring you 5 more gems that you may or may not have heard of until now, and I really do hope we can be neighbors in the digital sense while we tackle the physical copies that didn't quite get the love from larger publishers. If you want a journey to 80s and 90s anime and enjoy the bullet hell that Star Fox, Space Harrier, or Galaxy Force brings, Rogue Flight has your cravings all wrapped up into the Makazushi of barrel rolls. Alan C6277 recommended another banger, and I'm seriously considering just hiring him to make my content. My platform is your platform, so thanks a million. This action-adventure shmup really lays down some tough shoes to fill, and best of all, a team of indies is behind it. Truant Pixel on developing and Perp Games as publisher banded together to bring us a title that just may intimidate Maverick from Top Gun, but your expressionless heroine saddles the burden and rides bareback into the void with a noteworthy determination. Released November 22nd of 2024, I have only seen this one as a UK physical version for this console. Now I'll give my rogue opinion based on my time with it. Even if you bring your A game, you'll feel as if your losing game is slightly in the lead, but this makes for return playability when victory is on the crest. Make sure the fridge is stocked with Mountain Dew because this one is fast-paced and turbulent, and you're going to need that derivative of antifreeze coursing in your veins to keep up. In either a third ship view or a cockpit perspective, you will tackle 9 skyworlds that don't slow down and boss fights that feel like an endless game of Tempest. Thankfully, there are maneuverable attacks like a tail whip that utilizes your jet stream to destroy baddies, but it takes some work to perfect. Braking and boosting are also optional, but not as readily used. I recommend putting focus into well-placed upgrades because they are your saving grace many times over. With the amount of game tweaks and various modes, I think this game will be on the radar of most gamers and may go up in value also due to its choice of style and anime-like demonstration. I'll give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Nowadays, we have our fair share of mancing. There's necromancing, pyromancing, cryomancing, telemancing. Hell, I feel like Bubba Gump who knew how to make shrimp palatable to anyone. But I thought I knew it all until I came across spiritmancing, and the prospect of utilizing a new concept in my platformer made me spend food money to acquire it. This one was released physically on November 24th, 2024, developed by Sunny Syrup Studios and published by Dear Villagers and Oakjoy. It's a deck-building hack-and-slash platformer, which immediately piqued my interest, so I bought 2 of the cock-forsaken things just to make sure I got one. After that, I was truly hoping for a masterpiece, so let's settle in for a quick review and get to my opinion of either romance or no-mance. This has all the fixins of a well-cooked turkey at Thanksgiving on the surface, but once the banquet is sprawled out in front of me and I get to the taste test, I feel like Oliver Platt from the movie Chef after Dustin Hoffman serves the same food at his restaurant twice in a row. Not to say I didn't appreciate the art style, ideas, or some of the boss designs, but it ended up being an issue with execution. It was difficult to feel satisfied when the summons felt generic and tedious, and a little frivolous to use within the battle after the card you use disappears forever until you stagger an enemy to acquire a new one. The whole battle system just doesn't land, and that's where it needs to shine precisely. Don't even get me started on level ups. Each stage you run through does facilitate a varied environment and unique creatures to encounter. This very well may be the game's highlights, but unfortunately side quests reuse the same monotonous levels, and that makes it hard to exonerate. Sometimes quality supersedes quantity, and it's exactly what I wanted but never received. I'm going to give this a fair score of 6 out of 10 for the few things they got right, but my spiritmancing is going to retire with an exasperated sigh. What does the French Revolution and the movie Bicentennial Man have in common? Not a whole hell of a lot. But one could argue a mix of the 2 visual styles represent this game's aesthetics nicely. Released September 8th of 2022, we get quite a unique but well-received action RPG that made my steel rise. Developed by Spiders and published by Nacon, you are Aegis, a mechanical dancer creation tasked with confronting the rise of the automatons who are part of the King's army. I'm slightly confused as to the mature rating on this game because despite some minor blood and robotic violence, I don't see the need to check some poor schmuck's ID at Target to purchase this. Minor gripes aside, this one grew on me the more I played and turned out to be a good overall installment on the PS5. So let's get oiled up for a review. Slapping around a nod to Bloodborne and other similar genres while remaining approachable, Steelrising had me grinning like the Cheshire Cat on Alice in Wonderland. As you disassemble machine after machine, you'll gain anima along the way to use at Vestals to upgrade perks and attributes that are well refined in a well-crafted menu, which offer you 4 classes to choose from. I took particular notice of the character art style that graced the desolate landscapes you traverse, and I actually enjoyed the deliberate use of janky movement as you encounter these steampunk fanbots. Maybe not for everyone, but I found it oddly personable to the themes. I enjoyed the hat tip to the Souls-like genre and the Metroidvania mechanic by accessing closed-off areas from the items I picked up during boss encounters. The fact is, there are more positives than negatives to speak of, so if this looks like a roast beef sandwich with au jus, it may just be the French dip you're looking for. 7 out of 10. Everybody wants to be a cat, because the cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. This game made me recall my internal Disney jukebox circa 1970 and finally get the experience of being a feline. On September 20th of 2022, developer Blue 12 Studio and publisher Annapurna got to releasing this third Felis Caddis adventure puzzler. In a decaying cybernetic city, your journey is just beginning as you and your drone B12 scour your surroundings and narrowly miss danger around every corner. It's interesting to me how this game lets you control a cat, but gives it a human factor when making decisions. It's definitely thinking outside the litter box. Now, I've been kneading long enough, so let's go deeper and dig into a worthwhile review. I think if a cat expert were to analyze this game, they would find that particular care was given to the portrayal of mannerisms, reflexes, body language, and locomotion of the typical cat. I throw the game mad respect just for doing that, but then there's more depth even still. When we talk environment, we get a grimy neon-lit city that robotic residents inhabit and interact in around you. The world doesn't feel void of individualism either because each robot adds to the narrative and feels important if only for a finite time. Having a companion robotic counterpart named B12 made me reach for my B12 vape on more than one occasion as I explored the depths of the story, but besides giving me the overwhelming urge to toke up, the extra company proved bonding and useful. I think the only place that may suffer a bit is the length, coming in at just over 6 hours for me, but it is still very well paced and produced incredibly well for that time in terms of quality. It may not stray from mixing up gameplay immensely, but for what it's worth, I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10 and a nonchalant pass by the leg. Ah, the poor man's Portal. And it didn't escape me that the title's acronym is SOS, which is how it left me feeling on more than one occasion. This one, released June 8th of 2023, developed by Chaotic Lab and published by Gamera Nest. You play as a bot, LO64N, but if you're familiar with Rogue One, you may think you've stumbled across K2SO making his debut in gaming. I think it's just the eyes and the coloration they chose mostly that invoke the likeness, but spoiler, it's not him. This game is a puzzle first-person platformer and has ambition, just maybe not the story or refinement it needs at times. But despite the flaws, I feel there's a game here that deserves recognition as a deviance from other games that may try to appeal to the same audience. Let's solve the puzzle of should you buy this? Okay, so first thing, it was pleasant to only have to find Rubik's Cubes rather than solve them, but let's dig into the gameplay first and see how well it made progression feel. I think if this had been tied to Portal, it would make for a great prequel or side story to the classic puzzler. Going into a game like this, I expect some clever brain teasers, and it did accomplish this mission, but may not have pushed the envelope quite enough to warrant genius levels. But if you ask me if it's fun, I would say most definitely. And if you ask me should I own it for the price of under $20, I would say make the budget for it and you won't be sorry. I think that's a title that will become a cult classic because as of now, it is very accessible on the PS5, but relatively unknown. Not everybody has the means to owning a PS3 and experiencing the magic that the two Portal games offer, so if you're a PS5 owner, this is a great substitute. I say if you're bored sitting alone and reciting the Police song, Message in a Bottle, that this game will answer that call. 7.5 out of 10. Because I had a title that didn't quite make the cut today, I decided to bring you another option as a bonus treat. This treat provides the same level of action, if not a little more than Rogue Flight, and bombards you with it from the start. Released physically on January 23, 2025, and limited to 1,500 copies, it was developed by Whale Peak Games and superbly published by Super Rare Originals. You'll be twin-stick shooting with roguelike elements fit for a king, where dull moments never grow on trees. There are abilities, weapons, and health upgrades that near the 100 mark in quantity, so it takes some time to realize your full potential, but once you crack the code, it's like hitting that cue ball on a billiards table and watching the ball scatter from a clean break. As chaotic as it is, there is strategy, and when perfected, feels like you've solved string theory and leisurely collected your Nobel Prize. Your Mecha Ball awaits, and your reflexes beg to be tested, so let's go kill some robotic scum and boost toward a review. Mech building, planet defending pinball with guns. 2 of them to be exact, and of course your ball form, which sonics you in the direction of danger. I've always loved when a game lets me jump right in and get right to the point, and this one is instant gratification incarnate, but it's not as forgiving as you think. Even right off the bat, you will probably only last around 5 minutes on your first run, but as the curve straightens, you'll be pushing 10 minutes plus with every new run. You have around 25 arsenal selections and more than 20 abilities with 50 upgrades to your mech, so it's a customizable treasure trove of possibilities. I found myself singing Cherry Lips, Go Baby Go, from the band Garbage as I boosted my happy ass with bumpers and boosters. Stage design looks good, but it feels a little confined, and I wish the stages were a bit larger to stage my attacks better and see how the enemy was planning on attacking me, especially during boss battles. But it's a small complaint, and it doesn't stop me from shooting this a 7.5 out of 10, and a recommend if you can find it for under $50. With the dawn of digital upon us, I'm making last-ditch efforts to bring all of you physical media before the floodgates of downloads compromise our hard drive spaces, but I have hope, or even faith, if you will, that somewhere out there, someone won't stand for it, and we'll get to keep our physical media and own it as the gaming gods intended. Thanks for joining me once again, and please stay tuned for my next 2 big volumes of games that remain hidden from mainstream eyes. Cheers!